What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. And you know what we're doing here. You know what time it is. It's Championship Sunday, Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Commanders. We're talking ball. Just three guys chatting it up about some amazing football games. Matt, I'm going to start with you. How are you doing today on this beautiful Sunday night?
I'm pretty good. We just got a Super Bowl matchup finally set. That's always exciting. Another page in the league's lore. Every year, I don't know. It always feels like a big time event in a way. You know how it is.
Yeah,
so I'm excited for that.
Super Bowl. They don't call it the lame bowl.
Pretty cool bowl. Call it the good bowl.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you're right.
The good bowl. It's the okay bowl. Theo, how you hanging in there, man?
I'm hanging in there. Chiefs Eagles again. I don't think that this is any kind of bad matchup at all.
It'll be a good game. It's from a narrative standpoint, it's the least interesting matchup.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's not.
I'm not letting anyone go counter on this. No, there's no devil's advocate.
Hurts versus
no devil's
Mahomes,
advocate.
The Chiefs could three-peat. What would be that? What narrative-wise would be
a
interesting
team
about
that hasn't won one recently?
What's the difference?
Imagine the Chiefs lose this game. How upset! It's not that high stakes for them.
How would it be higher stakes for the Commanders?
If the team had never, if the Commanders made it, you don't see how that would be higher stakes than the Chiefs making it.
The Commanders have won one before, and no one's ever won three before.
But that's true. But that's eons ago.
So,
and with the Bills, it'd literally be never.
I mean, I get that, but for the Chiefs, it's a whole different thing. I said it a while ago. I just can't bring myself to care. If it was Bills Commanders, if it was Bills Eagles, if it was Chiefs whoever, if it was Texans Broncos, which isn't even possible, but if that was the matchup, maybe I can see what you're saying, like a little bit. And especially for the Bills fans, I understand feeling empathy for that fan base. People have lived and they've died and they've never seen one before. So I do understand it from that aspect. But, everything is lore kind of in equal amounts. We're all seeing something that has never happened before, no matter what happens, I guess. I don't know. I think it's all about the same. I really do.
There were only
Mahomes is
two
chasing
matchups
Brady.
We were either getting Bills Commanders or we were getting Chiefs Eagles. One of those three matches was going to happen.
Why?
It's statistically not accurate.
But the script writers had one of those two in mind. It was just a matter of which one.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I should appreciate greatness more. I think anyone listening to this should tweet that out, being like, "I'm sorry, real NFL fans are excited for the Super Bowl." And
I get it, but at the same time,
it's a hell of a lot easier to be like, whatever. I agree. It's not the end of the world or anything. It's going to be a good game. Now, you could argue that maybe after today, what if Washington had won and they had gone up against the Chiefs and it had just been a bad game? That would be, I'm not saying that's necessarily what would have happened, but that would be worse than Chiefs Eagles. And I'm excited. It'll be interesting and it's the Super Bowl no matter what. But it's better when it's a team that's never gotten one before. And it's less interesting when it's a dynasty.
Maybe. But we can start with Bills Chiefs here.
Yeah, let's get into
the fact is, the Chiefs are just the better team. And, the Bills getting in, it would be charity work. I mean, thinking that Josh Allen has already lost more times to Mahomes than any other quarterback in NFL history has lost to another quarterback in the playoffs. He's already at 4 losses. He might run those numbers up like Jerry Rice, man. These might be untouchable records. He might lose to Mahomes 10 times, and no one else is above 3 by the time his career ends. How are you already breaking that record? How are you ahead of Manning or Brady or Favre and Aikman or something like that. Like these guys are not even in their 30s yet, and you've already broken that record. I'm concerned that Allen may lose way more. After another Chiefs win, I'm looking at this, and I know I picked the Bills, so maybe it's stupid for me to say this, but looking at the Chiefs versus the Bills now, Allen, I hate to say it, not as good as Mahomes. And then none of Allen's supporting cast members or coaches are as good as what Mahomes has got as well. So it's like the Bills versus Chiefs rivalry is like the Cavs versus Warriors rivalry, but if LeBron was worse than Curry and it was just in general, the whole team was not even close to as good with no Hall of Famers on the defensive side of the ball.
If LeBron
where the
was
Chiefs
worse
have
than Curry,
Chris Jones,
Kyrie didn't exist.
Forgettable. Yeah, it's like the Bills. Sure, it could be. It's sad that the Bills lost, and we will talk about the ways they could have won. But they just didn't deserve it, and that's why I just don't feel that bad that they didn't win. They
gave it a valiant effort.
They did.
It was a good fight.
They did. They lost game of the year.
You got to just say what you're getting at. Say what you're getting at.
Me?
You're getting at the fourth down, the 4th and 1 call.
The 4th and 1. You talk about I think he got the 4th down. I do.
Let's be.
Okay. I do.
Well, let's be entirely clear. This is sort of one of those devilish situations where, first off, he got it. It was very close.
He extended it.
You can see maybe how the line judge could get it wrong at first. And then when you go to the replay, it's like you can't actually see the ball. However, you would either have to not have object permanence or believe that the ball dissolved to convince yourself that it wasn't the first down. They picked that up. You know which hand Allen was carrying it in. You know where it was in relation to his body, and you can see where his body was. He picked up that first down. That was a 10-point swing in the 4th quarter. And it's I'm a believer that the Chiefs aren't just getting lucky. I'm as annoyed by it's rigged, crap as anybody else. And it's not rigged. But you're not going to stop the narrative until you stop. You can't give him a double-digit point swing in the 4th quarter. That's not exactly helping the case. And that was a bad call, and it did change the game. I don't think there's any debate about that for sure. Now, I think despite that, the Bills went out there and then had a chance to win it anyway. They had the ball basically in the situation that you would have asked for, where it's we could score a touchdown and we could run down the clock enough if we can play our game to the point where the Chiefs are going to have a terrible opportunity and they'd have to score a touchdown if we score a touchdown. And then on top of that, even when they didn't get it, they had a chance to stop them again and get the ball back. And they didn't do that either. So I don't know. I don't think it's a reason why they lost. There's a balance with this stuff. It feels like you can't be, you either have to be the Chiefs have only won Super Bowls because they're lucky, and the refs are either are fulfilling the script the NFL has written or are working in tandem with the sports books, one of the two, of course.
Yeah.
And that's all the game came down to. Or you have to be on the side that the call didn't matter at all and they got it right. And then we have to do the whole and it's one of those ones, it just bothers me. It's one of those ones where it's you go to talk about it on Twitter and the only thing people are saying is well, it was a 50-50 call. Well, it's what it was on the field has to stand. It's well, if that's the argument for it standing, I think we know what happened. He got there. So, rules are rules, I guess. But I was bummed that one didn't get called. I thought Buffalo had a chance to put the game away right there. Maybe not put it away, but get pretty dang close to putting it away.
Yeah.
And they got robbed a little bit.
And I think the worthy contested catch was an incompletion as well. He didn't have his hand under it.
The call that I was a little
and it hit the ground. It's I can see how it's close, just like the 4th down play. I can see how it's close, but logically, if you think about it, he doesn't have his hand directly under the ball, and it hits the ground. How is the ground not assisting you that way?
I mean,
it moved a little bit, but it moved.
Well, and it's just one of those frustrating. It's another one of those where it's like you go and you talk about it, and it's like people are explaining to you why it's actually okay or why by rule it's fine that they got it wrong. I'm sorry, that does nothing for me. That doesn't move me even a little bit.
Well, because it was defensive holding, so they would have just taken the penalty anyway. And
yeah. So I didn't think the reffing down the stretch was very good, but I also don't think that's exclusively why the Bills lost or anything. And I agree pretty strongly with your point about like the Chiefs just being a better team and Mahomes still being the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he's as frustrating as ever in this one. And I thought the play calling was pretty good for Kansas City as well.
It was top notch on both sides of the ball. I mean, the thing is, like, Mahomes played such a clean game, ridiculous success rate, 99th percentile success rate. In fact, I think it was the highest success rate in a game of his career. Hold on, I can check this. Sheil tweeted it out. Sheil Kapadia? I'm sorry if I botched your last name or first name, honestly. But he says that's over a 99th percentile game for Patrick Mahomes in terms of drop back success rate. There were only 4 games this entire season where a QB produced a successful play at a higher rate. It's the highest drop back success rate of Mahomes' entire career, is what he said. Pretty ridiculous. And then Mahomes, like, there's just a lot of easy stuff for him schemed up. I mean, it's not a knock really, but not too much beyond 10 yards, just 2 completions, no crazy plays where he really like ran around and did anything too wild.
Makes the right decision a lot. And he runs when he needs to run over again, and he gets the ball out quick. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It really is Brady-esque at times. It's not exactly the same, but in terms of how they can get it done like this, and this totally is part of it for him. I do have to bring up that mesh call for game.
It was a mesh call for game. It was a mesh call for game. I don't even know what to say.
I'm sorry, I have nothing to add about that. My fault.
There's good mesh plays. There's bad mesh plays. It's a useful play. I like mesh traffic a lot where the running back kind of leaks out and like you get all 3 receivers screening for him. I like that way more than your typical like mesh rail, like your basic thing. It hits quicker with the running back. There's less of a chance for anybody to tail it in man coverage. That play is so much better than typical mesh. I can put up a long compilation of the Commanders failing on mesh this postseason. There are ways, like any play, there are ways to run it that are.
You know who runs a lot of mesh? Alabama ran a lot of mesh this year.
Bama, I'm sure they did. I mean, the Bills ran a whole lot of mesh, and I liked it when they did it by 4x1. There are great ways to run mesh. Like when I say mesh is overrated, I think it's just funny to have a beef with a play concept, honestly. And I want to draw attention to some of its failures because everybody spams it on Madden, and I think they think it's like the most unbeatable play in the world. And like I see it fail on Sundays so many times, so it's worth drawing some attention to the shortcomings of mesh. But it is a good play, especially mesh traffic or mesh out of 4x1.
Bama ran it against Georgia, against man coverage, and it got clamped.
It gets clamped against man coverage all the time. Like they see the mesh coverage and they just drop into trail, and the drag is running like 3 yards downfield. So either they catch it and get tackled, or they don't catch it at all. Like mesh doesn't work a lot, but when it works, it works. And shockingly, the last 4 teams left in the playoffs are very good at running some plays. So it was successful.
That's how it goes. I do, when like the Eagles have been doing their thing, I feel like the big conclusion or the big takeaway for me, or maybe like something that got proven wrong, is the Howie Roseman stuff, right? Yeah. For me and Kansas City, it's just there's any question about who the best quarterback in the NFL is stuff. It's just still Patrick Mahomes, I think. I think Allen or Lamar could beat him any given game, of course, and they're great as well. But I think Mahomes' consistency is what separates him at this point.
Yeah. And I didn't think Allen played like the craziest game. I know the Kincaid drop was crazy. Like
He has to catch that. Like the standard we hold Josh Allen to, like that's a play within. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. You know, it's like we put all the pressure on the quarterback. Like if he doesn't make some crazy throw when it's time to like be elite, you know, and like go down and get the drive and get it all done, like we hold him. We'll count that against him if he doesn't make an elite play. Kincaid had to make a tough catch, but he had to make it. He's a first-round draft pick.
Yep.
He's very highly regarded. It's like, if we can't hold Kincaid to that standard, I don't think it's fair to hold like, you know, any other player who's supposed to be good for this Bills offense, even if Josh Allen is obviously like
that. Play was meshed too, by the way.
Standard.
Allen hit a number of great throws, I thought. I mean, he hit 2 to Mac Hollins.
He did, but he also threw 2 brutal picks in the first drive that weren't picks. So, you know, if you want to call the Kincaid
brutal
drop
picks, and he was like kind of just, I mean, was it like PI farming or what exactly was going on? But these were throws where it's like, dude, that doesn't have like any chance of anything happening. Like that's not a good chance at all. And none of them ended up breaking against the Bills. You know, maybe I don't even disagree with this now that I'm thinking about it, where it's like, honestly, Buffalo might be kind of lucky.
Oh, totally. They were lucky that this was
even close. Yeah, I mean, when you take into account the number of interceptions that could have happened, or just like bad play.
5
They were 5 for 5 on recovering their own fumbles. What was the one that
Josh Allen like palmed off the ground?
Well, now that was an elite play. That was just him making a play. Let's be real.
That was an amazing fumble. That was the best fumble recovery I've ever seen.
Matt, did you think of
there's someone crawling on the ground towards the fumble, like he was going to recover it, and Allen just snatched it off the ground. The fumble recovery thing, I think statistically it boils down to luck. You know, like if you look at all the fumbles that happen over the course of the season or over the course of a team's history, like, yeah, you cover about half of them. The fumbles that happened in this game, not a lot of them were like bouncing around for a very long time, you know, like, is it lucky that like Allen dropped a snap right early and like he just fell on top of it? Like that one wasn't really truly a 50-50 situation on if he recovers it or not. You know what I'm saying? That. And like when he reached over the top of the pile on that 4th and 1 and kind of lost it on the way down and then just like landed right on top of it. Like that's a fumble, but it wasn't. Is it really like a 50-50 type of fumble? Like some of these Commanders ones where like it really gets punched out and defense takes it and it's bouncing around. Like that really wasn't many of these. Like it wasn't like they were lucky to go 5 for 5, definitely. But a couple of those fumbles, like it got dislodged and then immediately like a guy fell on it or the Bills player just kind of dropped it and was easily able to fall on it.
They're not the same. You're absolutely correct. They're not the same. There's different levels to it where it's like if you drop a snap, well, the Chiefs are lucky that the Bills dropped it in some sense, you know, and a dropped snap, the odds that you get on that as a defense, that type of fumble, which is just a totally unforced error, it just feels very low that the defense is going to grab that one. Now, the one where Allen, you know, somebody gets Allen from behind and it falls out of his hand like mid-throw, like that's about as good of a fumble as you can force, but Allen made a great play to recover it. I feel like that one's not luck either. When they really start to bounce around and it's like the shape of the football, that's when it starts to really feel like luck. But I agree there weren't a ton of those. So I think it's somewhere in the middle where like, yes, they went 5 for 5, but it would have been shocking if they lost more than like one of those or 2 of those.
Yeah, definitely. It's not
that's
like
all I need, I guess.
It's not like, yeah, it framing the Chiefs as unlucky for not recovering the Josh Allen fumble where he just dropped the snap is completely wrong. They were lucky that it happened in the first place.
We need a fumble review, Theo.
We do need a fumble
review.
It's a good idea.
It would do well.
It would do well. So maybe I'll do it. But yeah, at any rate, it doesn't really matter how much luck was involved. People get too obsessed talking about luck. Luck doesn't really exist in sports, I don't think. I mean, truly, so many things that are considered lucky are human error, which is really everything about sport that's skill. I mean, what is lucky and what is not lucky? What are we talking about here? These fumbles? Oh, it's lucky what happened. It's not really. If you really look at them, like there's nothing lucky about Josh Allen, like picking the ball up with one hand, that's like a feat of skill, just like a juke is, or just like if a running back is running and they spin out the guy trying to defend him and the guy falls down, are they lucky that defender didn't make a tackle, or are they lucky that they spun the guy out and
I think
made
there are
miss?
levels to, like, okay, if Josh Allen throws a pass straight to a defender and it gets dropped, like, he is lucky that defender made a mistake.
That is true, but it's on the defender
issue from the defender.
It's a skill issue, but Josh Allen is lucky in that moment.
And what is the defender? Unlucky, or does he just need to get better?
The defender made a mistake, but Josh Allen is lucky that defender, like, Josh Allen, like, took a side. He's like, I messed up, I got bailed out. Like that's a lucky play that he experiences. As opposed to if he throws a great pass to Dalton Kincaid that gets dropped, he's unlucky in that.
Is Dalton Kincaid lucky because Josh Allen threw him a great pass? Like, what does it mean? Like,
lucky is you do something good, or you do something. Lucky would be you do something bad and something good happens because of it.
But only the quarterback gets talked about this way. Mahomes is unlucky because he throws a pass.
Xavier Worthy was lucky that catch was called a catch.
Everything is lucky then. Everything.
Not everything is lucky. Not everything is lucky.
It just doesn't. It's so over discussed. The luck aspect of Brady and Mahomes and Allen and the Chiefs' double magic. I've been on this all year.
You have to rely on other things. There's
no such fucking thing. It's just not everything's in your control. Everybody has. No one is in control. Like, not a single individual player is in control of what happens to them. All right, every throw needs to be caught. Every catch needs to be a well thrown ball. But I feel like only one position ever gets discussed.
If you're a receiver and you're running wide open downfield and your quarterback misses you short and it gets picked off, it's like that's an error by the quarterback, and the DB is lucky that it was underthrown, and you as a receiver, you're unlucky that it was a bad ball.
But like, over the course of the team, like, it's not really an unlucky result. Like, maybe as an individual, you're like, oh, damn. But if you go zoom out, there's there's a reason that it happened. The reason is like, the offensive line got beat and my quarterback, his feet weren't set because of it. And then it was a bad throw, and then he missed an open receiver because of it. And then the receiver might be unlucky, like, oh, I beat my guy and the ball didn't get there. But it's not luck. It's not luck.
The receiver is experiencing that moment.
It's not. You can't attribute anything to luck.
You don't attribute the whole play to luck. But you could say, like, the quarterback was unlucky that his offensive lineman lost right away and he had to throw under pressure. And then the offensive lineman's like, well, I just made a bad play. And then the quarterback's like, maybe I was a little bit unlucky that he got through, but I still should have made that throw. And the receiver's like, damn, that was a bad throw. Well, what am I supposed to do about that? And the DB's like, thank God that throw was underthrown so I could have intercepted that. It's like there is a little bit of luck that these players experience, but you're right that that isn't like the attributing factor to the whole play, that it's like, that was a lucky play. It was like there was experiences of luck from each player in some capacity.
It's just things happening, man. It's just things happening.
Yeah.
We're agreeing on.
This is the analysis everybody tunes in for.
Well, I'll be real with you. I mean, I think that there is some luck on when you make your mistakes and how big they are. In football, like, one little thing can cost you a ton, and then a big thing cannot cost you at all. There's so many different aspects of the game all moving at the same time. Like, you can run it back with the same team and you're not going to have the same result every time. That's just because there's some natural variance, which I think is fair to categorize as luck. There's also things that I would consider, like, even more luck-based, like injuries. That really starts to get down to luck. Or calls from the refs, whether or not they get it right or wrong. Somewhat is in your control. Like, you could really get the first down if you're Josh Allen and the Bills and not leave it up for debate. But whether or not they have the right camera angle to see the ball, that's kind of break dependent. At the same time, the reason why the Chiefs seem so lucky is because they win. They might get breaks, But we don't think about any of the breaks, or I guess we are today, but usually you don't think about the breaks that the loser got, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times where the variance has gone against Mahomes, where an interception happens offside that I don't think really affected the play. We're not going to the Super Bowl. We get to the Super Bowl, both of our tackles are out, disaster, and everybody's dropping everything, and Mahomes gets crushed.
That game also featured the Buccaneers set a record for most penalty yardage. The Chiefs set a record for most penalty yardage in a half, which kind of made that game. Is that on
Mahomes? No, but then I could look back to other times during like Brady's career. Okay, he got lucky in the Tampa game, but he also threw for the most yards in a Super Bowl ever against the Eagles and lost. Well, that was bad luck. And there were times where, if we want to go with like kicking is a lot of times something that luck didn't. The Patriots miss a kick that cost them in 2015. I could argue that it's bad luck that in 2007, some dude who was hardly, in the rotation at receiver went up and made one of the greatest catches of all time, and you lose after going undefeated. Like, it just happens. There's bad and good breaks for even the greatest dynasties, but the difference is that they're so good and so consistent that they end up winning so much you don't really think about them. But the Patriots and the Chiefs have both had their moments, and it really is insane to me how similar the conversation around those two teams has been. Back when it was the Patriots, I mean, it's like all the exact same talking points, almost down to a T. And this time with the Chiefs, I mean, like, maybe sometimes now you hear it's like the Patriots were never like this about something that they totally were exactly like that. But I don't know. I think I was upset about the call because I was cheering for the Bills because I wanted, I wanted to see a fresh face out of the AFC.
You cheer for whoever you.
But at the same time, like if Kansas City had fumbled 5 times and got them back all at the same time, I would have said no fair, no fair. So, well, I probably it would have been. It's like, how does it happen? And then they would have posted the video of like the blood water fountains that the Chiefs installed. Did you guys see that video? They like dyed some fountain red.
Very satanic, very satanic. I think Matt makes a good point about injuries and how really that's the most unlucky thing that can happen, as opposed to, a kick getting missed or a drop. And really the thing that killed the Bills was an injury, which was Benford suffering that scary concussion.
Oh my God.
Hopefully he's all right, man. He was out of it on the sideline, going to the locker room. I mean, that was not good.
That was horrifying.
And his replacement, Khairi Elam, they had the target on him, man. And he was just playing with so little confidence, like playing off and not being able to close on any kind of hitch. And then when he pressed, he would just get discarded. He'd be falling over, stumbling, like that drag route that Hollywood Brown ran. I was laughing at that replay because realizing just how far behind Hollywood Elam was out of that bunch. Like, he was a quarter the length of the field trailing Hollywood in man coverage. Like, the Bills' entire defense just looked so pedestrian, and it's because it is pedestrian. Its players are pedestrian outside of Matt Milano. They just don't have a high-end pass rusher, it seems. They don't have a high-end coverage player, especially in this game. The linebackers are good, and the line is fine for the regular season. But in a game like this, you really need a consistent pass rush winner, and they just don't really have that. We talked in the preview about how they're not top half of the league in sack rate or pressure rate rushing for. And I think that was just so odd. They just had nobody who could really stop anything. I was a bit shocked. I know that there were injuries and they're not the best defense, but man, to allow such a high success rate for Mahomes and just provide no resistance, it was extremely disappointing.
Well, and again, I think it really just comes down to the fact that when you don't have edge rushers that can hang, it's just so easy. It's like if you can do everything right on your back 7 and Mahomes can scamper forward for 4 and it's a successful play and it's a check mark and you really didn't win anything. it's not a fair way to live, you know? Like, I remember on one of the touchdowns, I feel like they had him bottled up and he just sort of drifts out and just walks in for the end and for the touchdown, essentially. Although I actually don't think he walked in, but it wasn't a difficult touchdown or anything. So yeah, I think the pass rush, the Von Miller stuff, that just was a disaster. It hasn't worked out at all. Not necessarily all their fault, but I completely agree. Although I'll be real with you, they did come up with the big time stop when it was like, there's no way they come up with the big time stop. They held him to I was shocked when they held him to a field goal. They shut him down. I'm like, all right, well, that's got to be what wins you the game right there. This is a situation where when it got tied up 29-29, what were you saying to yourself? Here we go again. It's going to be neither defense can stop the other offense at all. They're all too gassed, and they're all just going to go and let it fly. And it's two legendary quarterbacks. And that's not really what it went down at all from there on out. I mean, you already had people tweeting out sort of like, you're going to leave them too much time, to leave them too much time, to leave them too much time, blah, blah, blah. And then it was a great stand on 1st and goal. Bills got the ball back, and then they just got straight up stopped.
Yep.
And with that stop, I think 2 screens, too much screens. I think you get down to a moment like that, and a screen is basically the same as taking it out of Allen's hands, in my opinion. Now, I know Allen might have alerted into those, or audibled into those, or killed into those, or whatever, but whether or not it was him making the decision to go to that, or the coaches, or you want to blame it on the system, having that be what you go to, or whatever it may be, I just don't like it being, hey, 3rd and 10, Amari Cooper on the perimeter, please save us. You know, like, and Cooper, I thought, did a good job on that play, getting it to 4th and reasonable, you know, but to me, that's a play where you're asking for an incredibly high percentage outcome to pick up the first down. And I really am just not a fan of that. I guess maybe some of the advantages, like, okay, one thing I don't love, I'm not even saying this is necessarily what they did. One thing I don't love is when you have like a 3rd down and you know you're in 4-down territory, to like trying to set up the shorter 4th down. Nope. You're better off trying to pick up all the yards 2 times rather than trying to pick up maybe a shorter amount of yards 1 time. And to me, it's like a screen there was like, cool, you took a chunk out of this thing, but were you going to pick up the first with Cooper on the perimeter like that? I guess maybe the numbers told you would, but I didn't love it.
Definitely, especially to Cooper. Throw it to Samuel. Like, isn't he your screen guy? Throw it to Shakir. Like, Cooper just seemed like a weird guy to target in that case. Throw it to Cook.
I mean, I'd take Shakir. I think Cooper would be one of the lower guys on that list. Absolutely. And even that's honestly not the more questionable, like either play call or alert or audible or kill or whatever. 3rd and goal, fade to Keon Coleman against Trent McDuffie. What was that one? That one was totally bizarre. I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to win the game doing that. And now they, of course, you know, they ended up picking it up or whatever, so it didn't matter that much. But those sort of bizarro, I guess you could say, in totality, those bizarro little play calling things or offensive design things or Allen audible, again, like, hard to place blame without really going and looking at it, maybe knowing their whole system or whatever. But it just feels like that cost them, even if it worked out once.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to place that call on, you know, if it's, like you said, Matt, if it's a kill call or whatever, because even if you're like, oh, well, the play that we have drawn up is, because what is it, 2x2? I think they had Samuel in the slot and then Cooper on the outside. And like the play they had drawn up, if it was like, you know, 1 play kill, next play, maybe they had it drawn up to execute a certain way in that formation. And then the kill call just was like, well, we might only get 5 on this one, but the play they might have had drawn up would have been better than that. But yeah, maybe you just need a better kill call in place if that is what it is.
I just think a screen to Cooper, it's like,
yeah,
I would have thrown the nuke. I would have gone beast mode, but cool.
Real talk.
I have another play calling gripe. How about a QB sneak to the right?
That's fair, man. How many total sneaks were there in this
Today,
game.
just today. I think this may have
like
been
15, right?
more QB sneaks today than in any other, maybe all the other conference championship games
Well,
combined.
if you count the number of times on like one sequence that the Eagles ran it because Frankie Louvu like jumped over.
Seriously, how much there was like an hour of airtime on QB sneaks, like if you combine them all today. Ban it, man. Ban the tush push after today. I'm sick of seeing it. At least, you know what they should do instead of banning the tush push? I think they should change how long a yard is.
What?
I like that one.
Just make it a little longer.
We
That's a good one, dude.
change how long.
Yeah,
I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't feel like that should come from the NFL. I feel like that should come from
It would have to
the
come
government or
from up,
whatever.
at the very
From
top.
up top. Yeah, let's go up
President
top.
Trump.
Donnie J, get it,
Chomp, we have some ideas. What about like
38-inch
42
yard.
inches?
See, you could just make a first down 11 yards, but I think that's too unesthetically pleasing. It can't be
Sorry,
first
it's
and
gotta be
11.
10.
It always has to be 10. So the solution is you have to make the yard like just a couple inches longer. That way it kind of evens out and it's fair for the defense.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree, and I think it's coming down the pipeline here soon.
We could just change it to meters.
Ooh, that's kind of a lot longer, though.
Let me look up how long.
How much longer is a meter than a yard?
It's substantially longer.
Is it?
A meter is 1.0936 yards.
Oh, that's not as big as I thought. Yeah, if the field was 10% longer, that's an extra 10 yards overall to the field. It needs to be smaller than that. Maybe just an extra like 5 yards to the field, half that.
Yeah.
Make the yard 5% longer, and that will kind of negate the offensive advantage of the tush push, I think. But I had another idea for the Bills specifically.
Okay.
Fire McDermott and then offer Spags Agrillion to be your head coach, and then just take him away from the Chiefs. You get the same stuff. You get the same defensive-minded head coach. You get, it's the same pairing. It's just he's away from Kansas City now, and it's like I know that he had like a 10% win rate as a head coach, right? But it's like you wouldn't have that with Allen. So like, why not offer him a bag?
Or you could just pay him a bunch to just be your defensive coordinator, couldn't you?
You pay him a bunch to not do anything. Be like Spags.
Pay him a bunch to retire.
You can be an assistant to the linebackers coach for $60 million a year.
Oh my God.
I like that.
I think that's a good idea. He's just the best, man. Like he spends
And that
all
final
week,
blitz he had was
that final blitz. He just cooks on these blitzes, man. Just isolates your protection plan. He should be your offensive line coach because clearly he knows everything there is to know about protections and how to beat them. I mean, when he calls a blitz, he is not messing around. He had one against the Texans where he's like, how is Chris Jones like one-on-one with Blake Fisher in this moment? And the reason is like it's a solid front to the other side, and then they blitz the corner, so it's like there's just no possible way to get chip help on him, and then like the guard is held to that side, so he can't help either by like someone acting like they're blitzing and then dropping out. So it's like just the way he designs it just right to get the matchup he wants and just shreds your protection plan. It's unbelievable what he's able to do. So he is the ultimate equalizer for the Chiefs. You can always trust him to take away the right thing. I mentioned in the last matchup, James Cook only averaged 1.9 yards per carry. I think that kind of stuck in their minds early a little bit. Like they only got really to the run game in the second half. Like maybe in the first half they were like, man, they did such a good job against us last time.
They ran so well against Baltimore. I was sure that they were going to keep running, and they really didn't run it that much early on. So, but I like your point about making Spags the offensive coordinators, Theo.
Yeah,
That's a good
the
plan.
offensive coordinator.
Bill Belichick, that's kind of how he would teach Brady things. It'd be like, yeah, this is exactly what we're trying to stop, and when we're running quarters, so try and figure out how to beat it. And like that was like the method there. So yeah, it could work. It could work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spags OC, McDermott head coach.
There you go, man. It'll work.
Dude, if the Eagles don't get these guys, when is anyone ever going to get these guys?
Yeah, when Reed retires.
Talk about the Eagles?
I do.
Retires. Chris
I
Jones.
do want to talk about the.
Oh man, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all thought I was finished when I bought that Aston Martin. Y'all thought I was rented. Shout out Jalen Hurts, man. Like more so than the Eagles. Playoff riser. Jalen Hurts is a playoff riser. Has to be discussed.
He had a good game. He did not have some like crazy game.
It wasn't crazy, but he was accurate. His throws were mostly on time. Like he didn't take a disastrous sack or hold the ball a ton of time like we've been talking about these past few games. He just looked sharp, and that's kind of what you needed him to be. Obviously, the run game is the main catalyst, but like he was aggressive on the deep ball to A.J. Brown, and that was successful. He just hit all the throws he needed to make. On top of the run game was great. On top of the normal tush push stuff that he does. Mm-hmm. So,
and then some on the tush push. Yeah, I thought Hurts was good in the sense like he hit some hole shots. He hit some shots down the field. It's not necessarily like, you know, what Mahomes is doing or Allen or like Lamar when he's at his peak or necessarily like that type of stuff, but it's really good, and it does keep the defense truly honest, and that's what you need if you're Philadelphia. This version of Jalen Hurts you can win a Super Bowl with. You can go beat the Chiefs with this version of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I mean, if he plays as well as he did in the last time they played in the Super Bowl together, I mean, he was basically flawless minus one play. minus one really bad play.
That's true, but Mahomes have a really bad fumble in that game as well? It happens.
Did he? I don't think he did.
Am I making that up?
He had a great game. I like the way Hurts played, obviously. He ran it well. The knee didn't look like much of an issue. He was getting it out to A.J. Brown. Like maybe he held it a little bit long sometimes. I thought Brady did a pretty good job pointing it out. I like when he is negative towards quarterbacks. So few broadcasters ever are. I will give him this point, like, that he'll kind of be nitpicky sometimes, and I do enjoy when he is that. He definitely was with Love. Anytime he called a Packers game, he would just cook Love's decision making. He'd cook Purdy's accuracy when he called San Francisco games, and I think he did a good job pointing out sometimes when Hurts maybe could have gotten the ball out to A.J. Brown one-on-one or whatever. Yep. But there weren't too many of those moments, and there weren't too many sacks or anything like that. And yeah, you totally can win a Super Bowl with this version of Jalen Hurts. He's not turning the ball over. And that, what did Romo say on the broadcast today? I think they pointed out that every single team that has won the turnover differential has won this playoffs. So it's pretty important. It's trenches and turnover differential. If you have the advantage in those two things, you're going to win the game. And the Eagles have that advantage.
Battle.
Did they? Okay, so this was the first time this playoffs. Man, that's.
But the Bills did fumble 5 times.
No, well.
They did fumble 5 times. They just didn't turn it over, and turnover differential doesn't include failing on 4th down, which is kind of a turnover.
The Bills failed on 4th. What was it?
Twice. I think they did it.
There was a ton of 4th down attempts.
I can't keep them all straight.
It was like insane today. It's ridiculous. I also did make up that Mahomes fumble. In my mind, they're sending anti-Mahomes narratives and conspiracies directly to my brain with 5G while I'm sleeping.
Both quarterbacks
my fault.
played awesome, but Hurts made one mistake, and that was like the difference.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I remember that game. I mean, you didn't get a lot of production from like the run game outside of Hurts. I'm looking at it now. They averaged like
was it Sanders?
Like less. It was Gainwell and Sanders and Boston Scott, and they averaged like under 3 yards a carry combined. This isn't about Eagles Washington, which is what we should be talking about, though.
Yeah.
I thought the big thing to me that stuck out, this isn't maybe the most important detail of the day, but the big thing, I remember we were talking about the last game that the Eagles played, and we're like, they got some fumbles, but damn if they're not really good at forcing fumbles. And today, again, it's like, you can't fumble the ball 3 times, but dang, that was like the perfect punch out, perfectly timed.
Every time.
And somebody brought up Charles Tillman's impact on our great game, and my Twitter replies, I forget who it was, I apologize, but I can't help but think like that's such a massive advantage. And going forward, at least when we're looking at this Super Bowl, I'm really going to be thinking about, do the Eagles have an advantage forcing something like that and winning that turnover battle? Not just because teams have been fumbling against them, but because they're so talented doing that? I think so.
I mean, it's definitely worth noting Tillman having a big impact on the game. There's a lot of defensive players that you think about that have a massive impact on the game that aren't considered to be like the GOAT. Tillman's one of them. Mel Blunt's another. There's a whole rule based on him like just tackling receivers before they could even finish running their route. So, yeah, but the Eagles were outstanding on defense, forcing a lot of fumbles. The one thing I noticed, the first 2 drives were just like, that was the story of the game. And I was like, this is exactly how this is going to go. First Commanders drive, 7 plays, 18
plays.
18 plays,
Yeah.
7 minutes, a field goal, like blood, sweat, and tears, march through hell to get those 3 points. And then the Eagles come out and it's a 6. First of all, not even the 60-yard Saquon touchdown. Eagles come out 40-yard kick return and then a 60-yard Saquon touchdown. Like, I'm like, dude, this game's over. Like, you could tell that the Eagles were just built to win this game from the jump. And then the very next drive, the Commanders fumble, and
it comes down to the trenches, man. Without Payne and without Cosme, they really never had a shot. And I wish I realized that sooner. Like, I shouldn't have given the Commanders any chance because they were just so overpowered in the trenches. And I think this Eagles offensive line, I pointed it out in a video before, like, their success rate wasn't very high in these playoffs. Like, they weren't being very consistent. I do think the interior there, and we saw it a bit today with Dickerson and Jurgens exchanging places, like that is a bit of an issue for them. And I feel like no one talks about that, and they just talk about the line like it's the same as it's always been, even with Kelsey, and it's not. But that didn't matter against the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders allowed over 7 yards per carry to Gibbs. It's just that Gibbs got 14 carries. That's all. The Eagles, all they had to do was to win this game was just not make that mistake. Put the ball in Saquon's hands. The Commanders aren't going to be able to stop him.
He got 15 carries and they won.
Oh, did he only get 15? Well, never mind, I guess. I proved him wrong.
I think it was just that their possessions were so short because they just kept
He definitely
scoring.
got a higher percentage of the team's overall plays than Gibbs did.
Yeah, I just think they didn't run a lot of plays because they kept scoring. Like, the stat that stuck out was after the first couple of possessions, and it might still be, the Eagles ended up with more first downs, but like the Commanders had like a bunch of first downs. I think they had like 8 or 9 first downs, and the Eagles only had like 1 or 2. But it was just like the Eagles just didn't have the ball because they kept scoring so many times. And then they had a short field half the time because their defense would force a fumble. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense why Saquon didn't get like 30 touches. And they took him out of the game in the last 6 minutes.
The other thing is that I felt like Washington really struggled to consistently beat this Eagles secondary down the field. There were a couple of times where like McLaurin won on that slant or in breaker or whatever and took it to the house or whatever. But outside of that, they were really, really bottled up. They weren't hitting a bunch of deep shots down the sideline. And I mean, when we saw that 18-play drive, I guess it wasn't necessarily what I was thinking at the time, but you look back on it and you're like, yeah, it tells you how much Washington's going to struggle because not only do they have this disadvantage in the trenches that's clear, but it's just so difficult for them to break off any sort of big chunk plays. Zach Ertz had 16 targets this game, which is an insane number. And I think it just mostly comes down to the fact that Daniels is going to sit back there and he's smart enough to know like he's going to take what's there. It's not like maybe Allen where there wasn't things downfield and you're really going to see it because he's going to put it up anyway. I didn't feel like Daniels did that nearly as much. And I thought Daniels played a very good game. I didn't really think any of the blame belonged on him. I mean, this Washington roster is far past where it should be right now.
That's very far.
That's the truth. Like,
yeah,
among the worst, like let's call a spade a spade. Jaden Daniels is awesome, and because of that, one of the worst rosters we've seen in a conference championship game in a minute.
They are so far away. Is the take? Their secondary is nowhere close. They don't have anybody who can hang with an elite receiver. Their defensive line isn't even close. Their linebacker room, I mean, they're good at coming downhill, but they make a lot of assumptions, right? Bobby Wagner, he doesn't really move very well anymore. He can't get sideline to sideline. He can make a good guess on where the gap is going to be and where the ball is going to go. But if it's anywhere different, like the Commanders are in big trouble because Luvu is blitzing and Wagner doesn't have the range. So those two together just kind of fatally flaw your defense, I think, on its face. And that was clear from the very first toss to Saquon Barkley that resulted in the big touchdown.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner just like blocking his own team.
Really? I was very proud of the auxiliary blocking of the Eagles there, which I think is a bit of a weak point. Their tight ends, their receivers. It's not quite like how it is with the Lions.
Devonta Smith is a really good blocker.
Yeah, maybe the receivers is too harsh, but like the tight end room, man, it has resulted in so many blown blocks this year, but they did a really good job there. But yeah, just none of the defense is where it should be. The offensive line isn't where it should be for the Commanders to compete. The skill position room is not where it should be for the Commanders to compete. The running back room isn't where it should be. Like literally nothing but Daniels and McLaurin are like high-end talents on the entire Commanders roster. Maybe Luvu in a certain role. But man, there is no
guarantee. The defensive line play, I'd say is.
Yeah, I guess. But man, like it's hard to say. It's hard.
Do you want to know?
Look, I don't disagree with you. I really do challenge people to think like what is a worse roster that has made it to the conference championship game? Off the top of my head, I'm really struggling.
I mean, the first one that might come to mind would be like that Bortles Jags team, but I feel like the roster was great outside of Bortles.
I mean, that defense was pretty historic in a way that
the defense was crazy.
Like, who could
they had Ramsey, and they had like Calais Campbell had like his best year, one of his best years that season. That was an incredibly good, and they had like Gibson playing well. They had a lot of guys. They had a ton of guys. That defense was crazy.
Do you want to know a crazy stat on the Washington Commanders?
Sure.
They led the NFL in this postseason in 3 categories.
Mm-hmm.
Third downs attempted, fourth downs attempted, and penalties committed. They also led in third and fourth downs made, but.
Yeah, so they were going crazy picking up their third and fourth downs. I think that's partially a variance thing, partially a Daniels stat. That's my read on that right off the bat. And the penalties committed is like kind of just an overall talent thing. That's what my gut tells me with that. This isn't to like shit on the Commanders. I feel like that's not quite what I'm getting at, because ultimately, like, I don't know, you hit on Daniels, you hit on Stan Russell. He's been playing good and making plays for you a lot. And you have, I mean, do they have the most or the second most or the third most cap space? And all these guys that they signed this year are like not super long contracts. So you kind of won this season and you've got a ton of money to play with. And you've got like, I think all your picks, unless I'm missing something. You're in a good spot to build going forward. I do think that Washington like really needs to hit on some building still, though, even though they just made the conference championship game. And even if they just landed easily the most important part, which is Daniels.
Yes, that is the key thing, is like there's the idea of like being ahead of schedule is something that I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around a little bit better, because it's like on the one hand, yes, like you're saying, Matt, they did sort of do more than they were supposed to this season. They won this season. They did a good job. but you still need to hit on your future and continue to build
So
this
much
roster
more.
out.
So much more still needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, they knew that there was a long...
Like, you're not ahead of
the
schedule
season
unless
is,
you actually continue to build.
yeah, they're ahead of schedule, but like the possibility is they could be behind a schedule as early as next year, you know, if they don't make
Yes.
some pretty significant additions. Like, it was just jarring to see that many points get put up against that. I mean, 7 rushing touchdowns. That's the second most in a game all time. There's still a huge gulf, even though they were just a game from the Super Bowl. They're really a lot farther away than that, which is fine. That you'd expect them to be that far away, but it was just obviously clear in this one. But to be fair, the Eagles are such a powerhouse. They are a nuclear reactor, man. They can create their own like perpetual energy with the way that they are able to scheme, and then the way that they are able to play their weaknesses. Like, what is the balance of playing too high all the time? Well, you're light in the box. Well, you give up short things underneath. But they're the best at closing on those short passes and forcing fumbles, and they're also like the best up front, and they stop the run effortlessly. So you've got the situation where you're just in this horrible, unwinnable conflict as an offense, where it's like, well, we can't go deep, and we can't run, and we can't do anything. Like, we're just screwed going up against a unit this talented. And it's the same thing on the offense, where you can sell out against the run, and then it's AJ Brown on the outside. There's just these counterweights that just keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and they can just shred you, and they should just shred you every play. Again, they have flaws. Not every player on specifically the offense has been playing like their best football outside of Barkley, right? And that's why they had been so kind of disappointing and pedestrian statistically in the other 2 playoff games. But against this Washington defense, you were able to see them fully operational, and they can, I mean, they've only lost 3 games this year. They won the last game they played against the Chiefs a few years ago. They won the last game they played against the Bills a few years ago. Like, it's so clearly a team that can win the Super Bowl despite a few flaws that seem very minor right now.
This is what the last game against Washington should have looked like. Like, if Jalen
was on
Hurts
that
hadn't
track.
gone down, this is what would have happened. Because, like, again, and I'm curious. Let's talk about the tush push sequence that happened there. 4 penalties in 5 plays, 3 straight encroachment calls. Frankie Luvu jumping over the top. I saw a lot of ban the tush push discourse that I always stand on. Like, if it's that broken, why doesn't Josh Allen have like a 99% success rate doing it? Why
He did until today. He literally did.
Did Josh Allen?
99%. Yeah, he did before today, but it failed today. So, you know,
but like,
in some key moments.
I just feel like other teams would build around this and like more often and be more successful. Like, no one is as successful as the Eagles are at running this play.
True.
Like, in some capacity, it is more so the players than the play itself for it being successful.
I agree. I think that's totally fair. I think they should have made them award the points, though. Is the route that I would have taken. That could have been one of the all-time like interesting tidbits 35 years from now, but instead they let them score. I'm having Luvu line up like it's Madden and you're pissed. I'm having him line up next to Jalen Hurts on the other side, mean like, go ahead and snap it, dickhead. You know, that would be my move. Come on, you have they ever awarded a team points like that ever? Has it ever happened?
I don't know. I liked I just liked what the refs were saying in those moments. They're like, if this behavior continues,
if you don't stop acting up,
he's literally jumping over the line like like so early. It was like they're hard counting, but it was honestly, Like, I just thought it was like bully behavior by the Eagles, and I loved it. I'm like, yeah, let me just hard count on a play that we know you can't stop. And so they just jump over the line. It's great, man. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. It is fun. If you don't stop, we're going to give them 14. Cut it out now. But yeah.
I don't know. Anything else?
Not off the top of my head. I guess there's a couple of coaching hires.
Liam Cohen.
Liam Cohen,
Ghosting
hilarious.
The Buccaneers. I think the last time that happened was probably Belichick, right?
I don't know. I feel like there's probably been stuff since then. That's a long time ago.
Cohen did it himself to like Kentucky, I saw when it was all going on. Like it's not the first time he's kind of left the team on red to go somewhere else. But I think it was a good move by him. Like I wouldn't want to work with Bulky. I get one shot at this thing probably, and I'm gonna get 100%. Tied to Bulky. He power played that. I've grown to respect that move. When it was happening, I'm like, okay, this is a little mean to the Buccaneers. No, right? You're going back. You say you're going to come back and then you don't. You leave them on red. It's like,
sorry.
You kind of do got to use that as leverage to get a GM you don't trust up out of there and get your head coaching job. Like I get it. I get it. It's game is game.
No, literally, it was like it's like a college dude like trying to. Like a college girl trying to play some guy or a college guy trying to play some girl. It's like, yo, like if you don't stop talking to so-and-so, like I'm just going to go back to my ex, real talk. And they're like, okay. Made that move quick.
Schottenheimer also got hired by the Cowboys.
He did.
Okay. Cool, I guess.
I didn't know what to make of that one. I didn't think that Schottenheimer had done a ton to be a head coach, and his name I felt like wasn't really in the mix at all to be that guy. So I can't say that I know as much about him as like some of the other candidates, but it definitely doesn't feel like some home run for Dallas.
Definitely not. Definitely not. It's a very average hire, and it feels just beneath the Cowboys. It's their most boring hire ever. Definitely. It just feels like no one wants to come there. Like that must be why he was hired. Like you let McCarthy's contract run out and he leaves, and all of a sudden the Dallas shop is opened up and it's supposed to be this big sexy thing. Like you can work with Dak Prescott. Like that's easily the best, but you have to work with Jerry Jones, and like, who knows where his head is at. And you get all this negative media attention that you wouldn't get in other places. Like, what's the point in taking the job? It feels like, you know, they shouldn't have to stoop to hiring an in-house offensive coordinator that would not sniff probably a head coaching job at any other location. So it's not guaranteed to be some disaster. Like he's been an OC and a competent one for a long time. Just because he's kind of an unknown name doesn't mean that he'll do some terrible job or the Cowboys are fucked forevermore. But it definitely doesn't feel good about the state of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
It's not exciting. But I mean, if you're like a Ben Johnson or a Liam Cohen, like you wouldn't want to go to coach Dallas because they have Jerry Jones. So.
Yeah, I kind of think I'd want a blanker slate if I was a coach. Dallas isn't a bad destination, though. You get some pretty big pieces. But I can see it being like they're kind of locked into who they are to some extent, and the expectation. Well, maybe that's part of it, too. Although I guess it's not really untrue for Jacksonville and Chicago, but it is nice to go somewhere where it's like, could you have a quarterback or have a good shot at a quarterback and not have expectations to win year one? Some places are like that. Other places, not so much. Dallas probably has more pressure to win now than
Dallas has so much pressure. Like, would Pete Carroll take that job, or is the Raiders' job better because of all the cap they have, because of Brady coming in for ownership and the possibility?
We can chill for a while.
Yeah,
I don't understand hiring Pete Carroll. I've seen a lot of people explain this. Like, I get like in the sense that like he's a good coach, but he's 70, dude. Like, how long is he going to be there? 3 years?
I mean, I get that he's old, but like he's such a competent figure. I like the retread head coaches, like someone who's a proven winner, proven leader. Like, when has Pete Carroll ever failed? He's not any kind of unknown. And if you only get him for 4 or 5 years and then he retires, that might be all you need to build the Raiders from
like a bridge head coach move.
Yeah, but who's a young, sexy hire that's like better? Like, oh, Joe Brady could be your guy for the next 20 years, but we don't know anything about Joe Brady as a head coach. Like, we don't know anything about Aaron Glenn as a head coach. I'd be perfectly happy hiring the guy I know can take you to the top of the mountain, and I know is an established guy and is never even, like, again, everywhere he's been the head coach, it's been pretty good. Even at the end in Seattle, it's not like those Seattle teams were any kind of disaster. And Pete Carroll, I think he can build a staff. I think he's got a reputation, and with Brady and everybody there, like, I like the track that they're on. I understand the Carroll hire, but I also understand, like, yeah, if you would have hired, if Liam Cohen is Shanahan, you might be able to have Liam Cohen for several Super Bowl rings or something like that. Like, you know, so I understand what you're saying, but realistically, that's not what Liam Cohen is going to become. That's not what Joe Brady is going to become.
Finding Shanahan, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't consider Stefanski to be Shanahan, but he's going to be in Cleveland for a long time still. Like, he's a 2-time Coach of the Year winner, and he's probably going to be in Cleveland for another decade, or at least I would hope that he is.
And what has that got in Cleveland?
Nothing, but that's not his fault.
Yeah, fair.
I don't necessarily disagree with your odds of hitting on the next Shanahan are tough, but, like, let's be real. Like, Pete Carroll is the oldest head coach ever. On week 1, he will be the oldest NFL head coach of all time. He'll be 74.
Yeah,
and that's pretty old, man. I mean, even
he's so young at heart.
If you draft, let's say if you draft a rookie quarterback next year, right? Let's say you draft Arch Manning. By the time that he is on his 5th-year extension, Pete Carroll will be 80. Dude. That's pretty old, man. And that's really not that long. I think a 6-year timeline is really not that long to think.
Yes. I
don't really have a strong opinion about it in terms of like Pete Carroll's mental ability or anything. Like, every video I've seen of him, he seems perfectly fine. And like, that's like a tough thing to speculate on to begin with. And if you get, you know, Pete Carroll's been a great coach forever, a lot of different places. I can agree it's a good hire in that sense. But he definitely is, like, insanely old. He's super old. He's going to be 80, man, at some, like, not that far into the future, man.
Yeah.
Now, but he also does seem like, I do agree, he does seem like a particularly spry and active type of dude.
Yeah.
It is kind of the whole thing where it's like, if I'm Pete Carroll, do I want to be, like, in an active rebuild? Maybe. I don't know. I guess that's
it seems like, yes, he chose to do it, to be fair.
He took the job, I guess. So, but yeah, you're right. If you draft a quarterback and then, like, he retires in 2 years or 3 years and you bring in another guy, it's like, well, now you have a new head coach. You're going to have the same potential problem of, like, is this guy going to be Shanahan or not? It's like, maybe, but it's like, now it's like mid-development instead of, I don't know. It's tough, but, like, I agree with, like, again, yeah, he's a good coach in a vacuum, but he's 74, man. It's just, I don't know. Maybe the plan is they hire, like, a coordinator who's, like, kind of slept on, and they're going to, like, Pete Carroll's going to mentor him for 3 to 4 years, and then when Pete Carroll retires, that coordinator is going to become the head coach. If that's the plan, then I'm behind it.
I think it'll be okay. Just hire competent people, and the rest let the rest fall where it may. And I think Pete Carroll is a very competent person, and if you only get him for a short amount of time, it's better to have had Pete Carroll and lost than never have had Pete Carroll at all. And then I don't know. I really liked this hire, and I understand that it's kind of low ceiling because of that looming question. But I like this. I like where the Raiders are at, man. Bowers, Carroll, Crosby, all this cap space. I like what I'm seeing.
They've got a vision, man. They've got a path, and I ranked them highly as like a good team to be. And that made our average for ranking them as a pretty good team to be because of, the Bowers stuff and the cap space stuff. And I think they got guys on defense that are pretty nice. And they've got a couple of guys on the offensive line that are nice. So it can work out, sure. Raiders to the Super Bowl next year, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Raiders, Packers, Super Bowl II rematch. I'm looking forward
Raiders,
to it.
Browns, AFC Championship.
Packers,
Lock it in.
Panthers.
Jordan Love, we're good. Bryce Young is here.
Real. But I think that's about all we have for this Sunday night championship weekend episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Now you get to watch us manufacture content out of thin air for the next 2 weeks while we wait for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.